Shalom. I want to start by giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Makakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Sanitation to the hopefully elect that is pushing in His word in the four corners and highways and byways. Once again, all praises, glory, and honor is due to Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Makakodash. Right? This is brother Zachariah here with another lesson. And this lesson gonna be, based on why is it important to communicate with brothers, all right? To stay in touch with brothers, all right? Because there's nothing good out there. There's no one, that is really gonna edify you outside of the body of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Shai. All right. If you have too much communication with 2/3, it's actually going to corrupt you, right? Matter of fact, let me read that first. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 33. It says, "Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners." All right. So, when you out there, you hanging around 2/3 too much. All right. Sometimes you just find yourself thinking like them, or speaking in the manner in which they speak. All right. And your speech actually goes back to your thought process. Right, because you need to think it before you speak it. And what basically is happening is that when you hang around 2/3 too much, they're corrupting your spirit. All right.
Please insert
And there are several other precepts that we could go to that will prove them. Right? I think it was Enoch. The most I say, you had to take him away before the wicked communication corrupt him. Roughly paraphrasing. All right. Maybe I get a little bit later. All right. But hey, in this walk, it's super important to just be around brothers, right? And to, look at the videos of the apostles and elders, all right? Rather than to, looking at a movie series and, so like I'm looking at movies or looking at series or, these soap operas and things like that, all right? Because why? It doesn't serve any real edification, all right? It doesn't really appease your spirit, all right? Because our spirit is not like the rest of the nation of Israel or like the rest of the world, all right? It's the spirit of a prophet, all right? When you go back to the ancient times, the prophets was super dedicated to prophecies, and to prophesying, all right? Right, this is Hebrews chapter 13, verse 16. It says, "But to do good and to communicate, forget not, for which such sacrifices Yahweh is well pleased." All right. So hey, every time you reach out to a brother, all right, every time and a brother sit down and break bread, is well pleasing to Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Shai. All right, because guess what? That's basically, the scripture say, where 2 and 3 is gathered in my name, there I am also. All right. So once you reach out to a brother, you breaking bread with a brother. That's basically summoning the spirit of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. That's also giving reverence to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. Because what is going to happen when you speak with a brother? Mostly, y'all going to talk about Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai and the prophecies. Alright? So the Most High is well pleased with them. Alright? Hey, and again, these are the things that the prophets of old was super dedicated to. Alright? The scripture say what? Iron sharpeneth iron. This is Proverbs 27 and verse 17. It says, iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. Alright? So you have to be in conversation with someone who is equally yoked. Alright? Because if you're gonna communicate with two-thirds about this word, alright, it's gonna completely break them because they're not sharp in the word like you are. Alright? They're not strong in the word like you are. And if you're gonna communicate with them about some two-thirds shit, then they're gonna break you. Alright? Because you're not strong in wickedness like they are. Alright? Alright, the script say, what counsel had a lion with an hyena, I believe it said. Because these are two completely different beings with two completely different, attributes, right? Different strengths and weaknesses, Alright, a two-third is not gonna edify you on how to overcome certain weakness, because guess what? He's not fighting the same fight that you're fighting. Alright? You're fighting a completely different fight. Two-third gonna be looking for advice on how to prosper in his wickedness. And you're going to be looking for counsel on how to prosper in the truth. Alright? So it's not going to fit. Scripture say, let your counsel be with a man who's known to keep the word of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. Alright? This is Sirach 37 and verse 12. It says, but be continually with a godly man whom thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord, whose mind is according to thy mind, and will sorrow with thee if thou shalt miscarry. Alright?
Please insert an SD card.
So that is it right there. Alright? But you have to be with a man who's known to have the same mind. Alright? Because really and truly, what you want to could talk about. Alright? Y'all could only, speaking for me personally, Me and the tutor can only talk for about 5 to 10 minutes. After that, tutor gonna start going AWOL, alright? They're gonna start malfunctioning and talking a set of bullshit. And that's when the conversation got end, alright? But if you and a man have the same mind, alright, y'all could talk for hours, because there are gonna be things that are gonna get addressed, alright? Alright, because you gotta remember too, right? Again, going back to the precept, it says where 2 and 3 is gathered, there might also sometimes, in the midst of speaking, Yahweh might reveal something to that brother or to yourself, about yourself or about the brother, all right? And it will be much needed information, right? But for 2/3, it wouldn't be like that, The conversation is going to be about all sort of, worldly things, all right? Now, if you and a 2/3 share a specific interest, like let's say art or, crypto or whatever, all right? If y'all was to speak on the topic, on the specific interest, all right, you may be able to get some information out of them, right? But other than that, like, basically just basic hanging out with 2/3 and these kind of things, is not advisable. It's much better when you do those things with a brother, all right? Right? Because it said, well, and will sorrow with thee if thou shalt miscarry, all right? Yeah. If you miscarry, all right, when you with a prophet like yourself, then the prophet could pull you up, He's going to know where you went wrong, and give you advice on how to fix it. But what could a tutor do? He's not gonna even know when you miscarry, all right? Because the elect and the tutor live by completely different rules and laws, all right? The tutor got their own rules, their own laws that they just follow. Street code and all these other craziness, whatever they want to call it, right? But the election, we live by the word of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, So, if you was to miscarry, only another prophet by like yourself could show you, hey, this law needs to be applied here. This scripture needs to be applied here. What the fuck tutor gonna tell you? They're gonna just tell you some shit that is, very carnal, very pleasing to the flesh. All right? And this is Matthew chapter 18 and verse 19, it says, again, I say unto you, that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. Ooh. All right. So there's a lot of power when, brothers come together. All right. Hey, and within conversations, a brother might say, he might be feeling this or that ailment in his body. He might reveal it to you. Hey, you say, hey, you're gonna be healed, and you say it to water, and that's it right there. That's all the most I need. And I've seen things happen like this plenty of times. All right, it happened to me. A brother tell me, hey, go forth and this shall happen, and it happened. All right. So there's a lot of power. We're just coming together as brothers. All right. Verse 20, it says, for where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. All right. And that's the most powerful thing, right? Because whenever you reach out to a brother, whenever the brethren gather, all right, and men are on point, then Yahweh is there also to reveal, to heal, all right, to give power, okay. All right, so with that, hopefully this lesson was edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rekah that will honors the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. The sanitation to the oath of the elect that is pushing this word in the four currency highways and byways. Once again, all praises, glory, and honor is due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rekah. So shalom.